I grew up next to a graveyard, believe it or not. My window looked out directly over the oldest part of the cemetery, a space where the stones were faded and cracked and nameless. The trees had overgrown this corner. I imagined that the dead rested among the roots like apples hanging from inverted branches. Mornings, there might have been a fog floating in a little white constellation over the ground until the sun burned everything clean. Once I thought I saw a shadow dancing through the cemetery fence. I wasn't afraid. It was calming in a way, to know the dead might still dance. I knew there were many things worse in the world than the restless dead. My brother Ian, for example. The dead don't dance? Ian told me the one time I was reckless enough to try to share with him what I saw. All they do is rot, he promised me, pulling me close. Then he hurt me in some small way. I can't remember if it was a slap or a punch, or one of the harder days. Years of little tortures blend together. Ian was careful never to leave bruises. He was a clever monster. My parents didn't notice just how ugly he was until after he was gone, that is. Ian loved to break things, tall and heavy. He enjoyed damaging people most of all, but that was tough to hide. Animals were easier, objects easiest of all. I guess that's why Ian would visit the graveyard sometimes and started smashing up history. He'd bring a hammer, a bat, bottles, paint, and he'd force himself over the memories of other people. As we grew up, I got better and better at staying away from my brother. Ian was convinced he was living in a world designed entirely as a toy for him to play with or shatter. Eventually, our parents noticed. When Ian was old enough and nasty enough, they kicked him out. A year later, he was shot dead while robbing a gas station outside of Easton. Ian went in with a fake pistol. The clerk's gun was real. They buried Ian in the graveyard right next to where I grew up. I could even see the plot from my room. The first night after he was in the ground was the second time I ever saw the dead dance. There was a heavy moon that night, hanging low. I could see all the shadows dancing around my brother's grave. I saw Ian as well, dancing, twitching, moving like he was walking on broken legs. For the first time ever, I saw him scared, lines of dread distorting his face. Ian looked up and saw me watching. He never stopped dancing. I don't think he could. Even at that distance, I saw him mouth one word. Help. I closed the curtains and went to bed. My brother told me the dead don't dance. They only rot.